Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. It's So with Zini here, and on today's tutorial we are going to be learning how to make this very beautiful Ankara wrap gown. I saw this dress on Instagram and got inspired to recreate it. So already in two of my previous videos I shared a tutorial on how to draft and make the bustier of this gown. So today I'll be sharing the tutorial of how to make the down part, which is the wrap skirt. If this is what you'd love, please don't forget to subscribe and make sure you watch to the end. Now let's get started. So here I have 6 yards of Ankara fabric, but what I used in total was 4 yards. I also have my lining, and here is my net, which I'm going to use to do the pleated design on the wrap skirt. So here we'll proceed with the skirt, and also we'll be drafting all our measurements directly to the fabric. So already our fabric is on fold, as you can see. So we are going to be cutting out the front part of the skirt first, and whenever you're cutting out the front part of a skirt, it has to be on fold. Okay, it just has to be on fold. So in order to determine the width of the fabric that you can fold, you should add your hip measurement to 3 inches at most. Then whatever it gives you, you can mark it out. For example, if your hip is 40 divided by 4, you divide it by 4, which is 10, and that 10 you're going to be adding 3 to it, which will give you 13, and then you would measure out 13 and fold. So already we have ruled a line, which is going to serve as a starting point for all our measurements. Now the next thing we'll do is to determine the waist of our skirt. So here is the measurements I'll be using for this dress. Okay, so now our waist is 35, dividing by 4. Dividing 35 by 4 would give me 8.75, so I'll go ahead and mark that. After that, I'll go ahead and mark out my 1.5 sewing inches allowance. Now the next I'll do is to determine my hip line. Now if you don't know what a hip line is the length of your hip from your waist down to your hip. So mine is 11 inches, so I'll go ahead and mark out 11 inches. Now on that hip line is where I'll be marking out my hip round measurement. Okay, so my hip is 44 inches, so 44 divided by 4 will give you 11 inches. So I'll go ahead and mark out 11 inches under my hip line measurement. After I've marked that, I'll also go ahead and impute my sewing allowance, which is 1.5 inches. So I'm going to put it there. Now the next thing to do will be to connect the waist and the hip line together. Using my pattern master, I'll connect the two lines together. Now moving ahead, the next will be to determine my knee line measurement. My knee line is from the length running from my waist down to my knee. So my knee line is 22 inches. I'll go ahead and mark 22 inches all through. So now I'll go ahead and bring down my hip measurement down to my knee. Now after bringing it down to my knee, I'll mark it, then I'll go in by 2 inches. Okay, so I'll remove 2 inches from the knee and mark. Then I'll connect my hip line to my knee measurement. Now after that, the next thing I'll determine is the length of my skirt. So normally Ankara fabrics usually come in 45 inches by length. So my length as well is 45 inches. So I'm not going to be cutting or adding. That is exactly what I'll use. So from the knee, I'll slant down to the end of the fabric. Usually you can go in by 3 inches or 2 inches depending on how slim you want the down part to be. So here I'll just connect it down. So the next thing I'll do will just be to cut out the front skirt. Now you know that this is a wrap skirt, so we are going to be cutting out 2 pieces of this front skirt, and then we'll use that to cut out the wrap area of our skirt. So now I'll fold my Ankara fabric again and place my already cut front piece to use and trace out the second piece. After I've done that, I'll go again and cut it out. Now the next thing we'll be doing is to cut out our back. So we'll go again and fold our fabric and then place our front so that we can use it to cut out our back. Okay, we'll place the front piece and then we'll make sure that we have at least some inches left in the beginning of our fabric. Okay, just as you see me doing. The space we'll be leaving will be for our zipper allowance. Okay, so I'm making use of 1.5 inches. I'll be leaving this for my zipper allowance. So I've already measured it all through and my space is 1.5 inches at the dot. So as we all know, our back is neither straight or flat, so therefore we'll be removing some inches from the waist side. Here we'll go ahead and mark out our hip line. Okay, then from the waist we'll go in by 1/2 inch and then we'll slant it down to our hip line. So just go ahead and cut that out, and as well decide to leave it until you're done putting down your measurements before you cut. So the next thing we'll do is to impute our knee measurement. So from our waist, we'll go ahead and mark out our knee. From the place we marked out our knee, we'll go ahead and go in by 1/2 inch and mark. After we are done marking out the 1/2 inch, we'll go ahead and make a slanted line upwards to where we marked our hip line measurement. Okay, I'll come again. After we've gone in by 1/2 inch, we'll go ahead and make a slanted line upwards to our hip line measurements. Now the next thing will be to determine my slit line and where it's going to stop. So the type of slit I'm using for this skirt is an open slit. Okay, so I'll go ahead and mark where my zip allowance stopped, and then I'll go in by 2 inches or 1 inch. No, I used 1 inch here because I don't want it to be too wide at the back. Okay, so I've marked out my 1 inch. Now from this 1 inch, I'll slant it back to my knee line measurements. Okay, just watch what I'm doing so that you can understand it properly. So now that is it for the back, and the next thing we'll do is to just go ahead and cut it out. Please, if you do not understand this process, I would kindly advise that you go back and replay it so that you'll be able to understand it properly. That is that for the back. We'll move over to the second piece we cut out for the wrap skirt. This is the second piece of the skirt. It's unfold. We'll open it up. So this is the part that we'll be using for the wrap, and then from the waist side we'll go in by 7 inches and mark. Now after marking that, we'll go down to the skirt length, and then we'll go in by 10 inches as well, and then I will mark it. So the next thing I'll do is to connect the line from my skirt waist down to the length of my skirt. Okay, this is going to give us a slanted line, so I'll go ahead and just mark that all through. Next I'll do is to just cut this out with scissors. Now after I've cut it, I'll do away with the smaller part, and then what we are going to be using is this bigger part. So here's the lining we'll be using for this skirt. I'll go ahead and cut out the lining for the whole pieces and come back and show you what it looks like. So here I've cut my lining fabric, and I've also lined it with the Ankara dress. So this is the back of my skirt. So I achieved this by placing the lining on top of the right side of the Ankara, and then I sewed the edges. So I sewed the edges together, and some people call this facing as well. Now for this, I'll go ahead and join the back bodies to the back of the skirt. Okay, just as you see me doing in the video. I'll place the right sides facing each other, and then I'll sew it up together. I'll set this aside for now and show you the front. Now for the front, I've also done the same thing. I've gone ahead to cut out the lining, and I've lined the edges together. I've sewn up the edges together, okay, so that you will not even get to see the edges of the fabric. So this is it, and this is what it looks like. So here I'll go ahead and place my wrap skirt piece on top of the main fabric, okay, just so you can see how it is going to be. I've also gone ahead to line the wrap skirt, okay, just remaining just one side of it, of which I am going to put my pleated net on. Okay, so I'll show you how to achieve the pleats. So for the net, I used 3 inches for the height, as you can see, and for the length of the net, I multiplied 45 by 3, which gave me 135. Okay, so that was what I used in cutting the length of the net. And now I cut 3 pieces of 145 so that it will make the net a bit thicker, as you can see, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so there are 3 pieces of net right there, and I've already gone ahead to run a straight stitch at the beginning of the net. I left like 1/2 inch, and then I ran a straight stitch. This is how I'm going to be pleating it. I'll put one of my finger inside while closing it with the other of my thumb, and then I'll pin it up. So the space I'm leaving is 1 inch space, okay? So this is what I'm going to do throughout, and I'll go ahead and just stitch this up in my sewing machine, and then I'll come back and show you what it looks like. So I've stitched it up, I've pleated it, and this is what it looks like, okay? I did it with a black thread so that you can be able to see it clearly. So yes, I've done this and I've ironed it as well. So I'll go ahead and put it inside my clothes just as you see me doing. So from that our opening, I'll open it inside out and then turn it over. Okay, so this is going to come inside like so, and then I'll use my Ankara fabric to cover it. Okay, so the stitched part has to face outside while the bigger part has to face inside. Okay, so I'll go ahead and place it carefully in between my Ankara and my lining fabric, just as you see me doing. Go ahead and gently pin this up so that it will be easier for me to sew along in my sewing machine. So yes, I'll pin it all the way down and I'll carefully just run a stitch across. This is it. I've stitched it and this is what it looks like. So I'll carefully just go ahead and trim out all the excesses. After trimming it out, I'll turn it right back to the front again. So after turning it out, this is what it looks like. So as you can see, the stitches are already inside and you can see it from the outside. Okay, so look at how neat it looks. Now the next thing would be to fix the band. Okay, so remember this is a wrap skirt and it has a band that will be used to tie it over to the back. So already I have cut out my band with just the height of 2 inches. I cut out 2 different belts. Okay, so I closed them up and then I left one side open. This is the side I'll be using to enclose the skirt part. Okay, just as you see me doing. So I'll go ahead and put the skirts inside the band. Now after putting it in, I'll just go ahead and fold the band inside by like half an inch. So I'll fold the front of the band as well as the back of the band. Now after folding this up, I'll go ahead and hold it down with pins and then run a straight stitch across on my sewing machine. Okay, so you can just fold this in and iron before you sew. If you're not so much of a professional, you can just iron it, fold it inside by half inch and iron before you sew, or you can just sew it directly on your sewing machine. Any which one that will be easier for you, but I'll advise that you iron it first before you sew. So here for our front, I've gone ahead to join the front bodies to the down bodies. Okay, so I've joined the up and the down part together and this is how it looks like. Also, this is the inside. I've lined all of them properly and this is what they look like. For the back as well, the same thing was applied. We've joined the upper bodies and the lower bodies together and this is what we have. So the next thing that we'll be doing for this back is to impute the zip. Okay, so we are going to put our zip here, but before we put our zip, head and close off the allowance before the slit of the dress. So yes, this is it. I'll start first by placing the two right sides together on top of each other and I'll hold this down with pins, but before that I'll mark out my hip line first. So I'll go ahead, measure it out and mark out my hip line. So on my hip line, I'll go in by 1 inch and measure it out. So now I'll measure this throughout to where the zipper allowance stops. Remember that our zipper allowance was 1.5 inches and we used 5 inches to close out the edges. So we'll just mark 1 inch and then we'll do this all the way down. Yes, after we're done doing this, we'll go ahead and run a stitch down from where my finger is down to the allowance where the allowance ended. Okay, so after that we'll go ahead and add our zip. So this is the front part of our dress and as you can see, I've already sewn the belt to the wrap part of the skirt. Also, I've sewn the wrap skirt and the main skirt together as you can see. Okay, so before we join everything together, you have to sew both of them together. So here I've sewn them together, my wrap skirt and the main fabric, and this is the front part of the dress. So now what we'll be doing next is to join the back and the front together. So this is the back. I've added the zipper and this is how it looks like. Okay, so this is the slit, the open slit. This is how the slit looks like as well. Now I'll go ahead and place the back and the front together. So by the side, I'm going to hold it down with pin and then join these two pieces together. Okay, so I'll join this on my sewing machine and come back and show you what it looks like. Also, for the other belt that will be used to tie it to the back, I'll go ahead and put it inside and then bring out the outer part outside, hold it down with pin, and then I'll sew it up together just as you see me doing in the video. I'll hold this down and then I'll stitch all of this together. So yes, I'm done joining this dress together, and this is exactly what it looks like. Okay, so the next thing I'll do is to just iron it properly, iron the sides. So see the slits area, remember we left 1 inch, and adding it to the other end will make it 2 inches in total. So now the next would be to fix our sleeves. The sleeve I'll be using for this gown is called the tulip or the petal sleeve. So I've already gone ahead to make my sleeves, and the next I'll do is to just attach it to the sleeve area, to the armhole area of this dress. And after I've done that, I'll wear it on my mannequin so that you guys can see the final look of the dress. Yes, this is the final look of our dress, and this is how it looks on the mannequin. As you can see, this dress really came out very well, although our mannequin is not bordering it so well, but trust me, this dress looks very much better in person. So let me know your comments, let me know your thoughts, whether this was a hit or a miss. Okay, please do not forget to subscribe if you have watched to this point, and if you have enjoyed this video, like, comment, and please do not forget to turn on your notification bells below in order to get notified whenever I post subsequent videos. Bye, and see you in my next video.